Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by Shotgun Spratling and Ryan Abraham. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to break down USC's 28-14 loss to the Washington Huskies on the road. The road woes continue for the Trojans, so we'll break that down. Plus, we're fresh off of Clay Helton's conference call. It was a short conference call, not much really to talk about at this point in the season. It's kind of put up or shut up at this point. We're not sure also if there were some technical difficulties, so that might have played into it, but it was a short conference call nonetheless. And we'll talk about going forward. What does this mean for the Trojans heading into the bye week? What do they need to fix? They're going to face a tough Notre Dame team after their bye week, and so it's uphill for USC at this point. And of course, we're your therapists. Free therapy for the hour. Wherever you're watching this, comments, questions, concerns, put it wherever you're watching. YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope. You can also tweet at us, #TunnelVision. I'll put your tweet up on the screen. And you can also call us. We already have a caller on the line, which is exciting. 512-4-TUNNEL. Your comments, questions, concerns, like I said, call us, talk to us. We love hearing from you guys. But guys, like I said, a lot to break down. Shotgun, you were not there on the sideline, which is sad.
No hurt on the sideline this week for you.
I know, it's true. But Ryan, you were there, which is fun.
I was.
I got questions when I saw people in the airport. They're like, "Is Ryan here?" And I was like, "He is. He's somewhere."
It's funny. We go in there. It's a fun trip to Seattle. I like going. I got to see some friends that from up there, and overall it's fun. I don't think I got rained on the entire time. Our buddy Chris Trevito, unfortunately, went to one of the high school games, and he got hailed on and stuff. But for the most part, it was all right. It was chilly, definitely cold at Husky Stadium, and very loud. With the open air press box, if these garage door things, they open them up. The wind was it's like a wind tunnel in there, just howling. You're doing interviews after the game. Wind is just whipping through there and stuff. It's pretty crazy situation. Much different result, obviously, than when we were there I was there in 2016.
True.
Keely, this was your first. Congratulations! You've completed your Pac-12.
I did it, guys. I went to every Pac-12 stadium. And I think I saved one of the best for last. Husky Stadium was really cool. The water and the tailgating, the sailgating, if you will. It was really cool.
It was, but this was a different feeling kind of game, and there, it's almost similar to the Utah game from last week. Besides being home on the road, I don't think Utah played very well. They looked great in their game yesterday, beating the crap out of Washington State. They didn't play well against USC. I don't think Washington played well against USC. They didn't play great against Cal, in that loss. They smoked everyone else, but they didn't play well in this game against USC. And USC did a couple things that we thought were really important, much better. They ran the football as good as they've run it all year, over 200 yards. All three running backs were good. You wouldn't say, you got to do Step or Carr. They all had good runs. And the USC secondary that was completely beat up. And Greg Johnson doesn't even get the start. He doesn't play the first quarter because he's out because of a breaking a team rule. You have the true freshman coming off, knee surgery, Max Williams in there, getting his first start, forces a fumble. He makes good plays. They're playing one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, in Jacob Eason, and the secondary does a really good job, despite not having Talanoa Hufanga and having Elijah Griffin. They tackled pretty well in this game. It wasn't great, but it was better. And so I thought they'd be a real issue not being able to tackle with Hufanga out there.
And OG, too, as well.
And Elijah Griffin, for sure. But overall, those aspects, USC played better than expected, and those were really important. And you still lose by 2 touchdowns. And, obviously the 3 turnovers are a big deal. I think USC's -7 on the season. But the stats weren't as lopsided as they were in Utah's favor last weekend when USC ends up winning. The stats were pretty even, and USC did things well that we thought they wouldn't do well and still end up losing by a couple touchdowns. So it's just more of head-scratching, same sort of thing. And to score only 14 points with this kind of talent, I mean, I think you might talk about this, but some of this has to be on Graham Harrell because you have way too much talent to only score 14 points. It looks too much like last year.
I didn't think that they had a great game plan, offensively. The play calling I thought could have been better. Just a lot of times when there are 5 guys in the box and they decide to throw the ball still. They're going to be dropping 8. You're throwing into some stressful situations, putting Matt Fink in those situations when they were running the ball so well. It wasn't like Utah. If Utah would have in the fourth quarter went to 3-man front and you've just been struggling to run the ball the entire game, that would have been different. They were running the ball well.
Yeah,
I would have ran the ball more. Like I would have had to check it at the line of scrimmage. Anytime we see them in a fight where there's 5 men in the box, Matt Fink, you go to the line, you count. Okay, Is there 5 guys here? Now Washington wanted to change your looks. They wanted to do some different things, but force them to come out of things. I just didn't feel like they did that enough. They had opportunities because they're running really, really well with, especially Stephen Carr had a really big game. Marquise Stepp was running downhill. They were doing some things really nice in the run game. I would have continued doing it. And I know it's hard to not throw the ball when you have Tyler Vaughn, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Michael Pittman, but if they're giving you that look, I think you just got to continue to pound it. And you saw Washington switch their looks up a lot. They talked about that on the broadcast a lot. They're switching they're doing these different things, but their safeties are playing 15 yards off the ball, which tells you, no, you can't throw that deep pass over the middle.
They're trying to take that away.
Yeah, and you can't throw the deep balls as much as you wanted to, and what you were able to do against Utah. But that means you can run the ball and force those guys to start creeping up because you're getting 6-7 yards every time, or throw screens, wide receiver screens. I thought that was a play that they could have run a lot more of. Force those safeties to come up and participate in the play rather than sitting in the very back. And the only time they really do anything is when you get 15 yards down the field or they're catching the long passes that you're trying to make. So I didn't think their safeties, Cam Williams got 2 interceptions, but he didn't really do much else besides, he got in trouble on the Pittman touchdown, and that was because they had been running the ball really well. He was looking at the play-action fake, and that's why Pittman ran right by him. There were opportunities there where if you continue to run the ball, the safeties start paying more attention to that, and that opens up those long passes a little bit more, or just forces them to come down in the box and gives you a little bit more space to throw those deeper throws and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, when it came to the turnovers, and Clay Helton said that that's essentially why they lost the last 2 games, BYU and UW. And turnovers were something that Clay Helton had specifically highlighted. Another thing he had highlighted in the offseason are penalties. And both of those are not doing so well 5 games into the season. And Clay said it's a great learning lesson for the team. But what does it say that you're still learning halfway through the season, things that you had earmarked heading into the season?
Yeah, so this was coming. The post-game press conference was rather disappointing. Just some of the things that he was saying about playing hard, and it just wasn't. It's not ringing true. It feels very hollow. That this is not the time to be like, this is a young team. They mentioning it. Basically, he was trying to highlight anything he could to be like, but we beat Utah last weekend, which means we have the leg up in the Pac-12 South. So sort of like relying on that this was a Pac-12 North loss. Doesn't matter as much. And to me, it's like you lost to BYU. You weren't very competitive at Washington, losing by 2 touchdowns, scoring only 14 points. You could argue whatever happened. There's a lot of issues there. I think the same kind of coach speak is just, it's falling on deaf ears, and USC fans are very frustrated. I met a fan today on the airplane. I was just sitting down to getting to my seat, and doesn't introduce who he is. Just says, "Is this Clay Helton's last game?" And he was talking. He talked to him after we got off the plane, and just how frustrated he was bringing his son there, something he cared so much about for his whole life, and it's just the sense of apathy now. He just doesn't care, and he's not hearing it from Clay Helton, where he wants him to come up and say something at least like, "Hey man, we should have won this game. We're going to go back and we're going to do 2-a-days or whatever. Do something to change it up." And on the conference call, it was the shortest one we've ever had, like Keely mentioned. Dan Weber posted on USCFootball.com, in over a decade, this is the first time he hasn't asked a question on the conference call. He just doesn't know what to say anymore because you just get the same kind of words over and over again. And one question I thought was somewhat relevant was, kind of a way of asking, are you going to do stuff, just kind of try to fix the mistakes, fix the little things, or is there something bigger that you could do, like a bigger change? And
with the bye week coming up.
With the bye week.
Yeah.
And Clay was sort of just like, yeah, we're this close. And it just wasn't it's not been the right answer. Fans know it. They're not. And Keely mentioned this before, to say you lost on the road to 2 good teams. BYU is not a good team. They're 2-3. one of the wins over USC. They just lost to Toledo. It's like BYU is not a good team.
Yeah.
So it's just some of that stuff is like, it's disingenuous, and I think a lot of the fans feel they're being patronized where he's mentioning things that the real story behind it. It wasn't, 2 tough road games. And so I feel like he's definitely lost the fan base at this point, and the more people we talk to, and we get to talk to a lot of people on the road. We had an awesome meetup at the Owl and Thistle. Thanks for everyone that came out. We had over 100 people there. We organized it the day before we left. So we did mention it on the show. And just talking to so many people how frustrated they were with the program and with Clay Helton. And it's tough. I felt like we were in a sense of purgatory a lot of last year. And then this year, like Keely said earlier, it was like a put up or shut up. It was like a prove it kind of thing. And so far, you haven't been proving anything. And you're using the same kind of terms that you were using before. So to me, it just doesn't seem like this is working right now. And I don't know where you can go from here besides making a change.
It seems a lot of times in Clay Helton's, especially the post-game pressers, is that when you really want him to focus on what didn't go well or what did go well in one game, he talks about the broader picture. But then when you talk to him on a Tuesday or Wednesday, when you want to talk about the broader picture, then it goes to the super simplified. And maybe that's because he's kind of deflecting to an extent. With that, maybe that's his strategy, or maybe that's just what happens, whether he's intentionally trying to do that or not. But when you wanted some specific answers after the game, why didn't you run the ball a little bit more? Probably the big plays obviously on defense really hurt them. The 89-yard run, the turnovers are the biggest thing. Obviously, the 3 interceptions. If you don't throw 3 interceptions, you pick up the 4th. Your 4th and goal, you go for it. This is the one time that I would agree when he goes, it's a couple of plays here or there, that type of game. This could easily have been the other way. It was the same last week against Utah. A couple plays, Utah wins that game easily.
Yeah.
But instead they fumble on the goal line. USC, they get a fumble at the goal line and Washington jumps on it for a touchdown. Max Williams does a great job filling in the hole right there. A guy who's 5'9", 5'10", probably.
Maybe. Yes.
And, sticks his helmet and shoulder pads right on the running back. That was a great play by him. And that takes some, especially his first time play, and that takes some kind of heart to get in there and do that. So I was really impressed by that play. And the ball bounced. I think Keely actually kicks it, not knowing, as Chase Williams is trying to dive on it, it gets kicked, and it goes right to Washington.
RJ Bocelli, I think, jumped on it or whatever. Yeah.
And so if somehow USC recovers that one and then they score on the 4th and goal, it's basically a tie game at that point. So it was one of those type of games where the close plays didn't go USC's way. You got to create a couple more of those.
Yeah.
But that's what happens with similarly talented teams. I just thought that Washington did a better job of executing their game plan, and especially the turnovers. USC now is -7. When Clay Helton said before the season, said in the spring, he was going to take a step back from the offensive side. He was going to focus, on the team. They were going to focus on turnovers and penalties. There was going to be the 2 things. And they got some atrocious penalties in that game.
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with the way some of those were called, like the spike on Matt Fink. I never saw that on the broadcast. I don't know where that was.
He did spike it.
Talanoa Hufanga being a yard on the field and getting a 15-yard penalty. But those really, really hurt. So you get the turnover, and then suddenly you have a 15-yard penalty on it. So instead of being at the 40-yard line, you're at your own 40-yard line, and you get, I think, a holding on a couple plays later.
Yeah.
So suddenly you're backed up on what should have been a drive that you're going to score. So the things that they were supposed to be focusing on, that Helton was going to take that overarching look, they're struggling with right now.
Yeah.
And now it obviously hurts that you have 2 young quarterbacks that have stepped in and have thrown 3 interceptions themselves, and that's kind of what he said on the conference call. He kind of lent it to that, but you got to overcome that.
Right.
Then don't put them in situations where you're trying to make them throw over the middle against a team that's dropping 8.
Yeah.
I think that the one thing you mentioned, that as far as he talked about focusing on turnovers, talked about focusing on penalties, and neither of those areas have been good. I think John Wilner tweeted out, USC got penalties on people that aren't on the team each of the last 2 weeks. Reggie Bush and Talanoa Hufanga. Well, he's on the team, but weren't playing in the game. But I think the big word here is accountability, and that was the buzzword that was used throughout the offseason. Everyone's going to be accountable and stuff. And when you say that, and then what you're hearing now, I'm not hearing a lot. I don't know if you guys disagree. I'm just not hearing a lot of accountability. I'm hearing a lot about we're this close or blah, blah. And it's not, you know what? I told you I was going to fix turnovers, and we've sucked at them. So this is what I'm going to do. And you're not hearing that.
I agree. I think it's something that if that's going to be your focus. And I thought that what they did in the offseason, what they did in the spring and the fall camp was a great step.
Yep.
You know, they were struggling at those things, so they worked on it. They did the turnover circus. You see the guys trying to rip the ball out. They've created some fumbles and stuff, but you got to do it on the other side too. You got to be able to take care of the ball on the offensive side, and they have not done that very well.
Yeah.
Now, as far as accountability goes, I feel like a little bit we've seen some accountability. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but I don't know. I just feel like Clay Helton's not the type of person who's going to say those things to the media. That's just not who he is. So is it just a foolish thing to try and expect him to say it now at year 4 or whatever?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of change as far as like, the whole Greg Johnson, whatever. We don't know the team rule he broke. What team rule is it that you miss a quarter? Like, would he have missed the whole game had all those other guys not been hurt? I mean, that to me, that there's questionable accountability there. I don't know. Have you ever seen a guy miss a quarter? Like usually, like
Keely missed half of the Texas game last year.
Yeah.
But
I'm not seeing like, hey, you committed a penalty, you're coming out of the game or anything like that.
Which is something that was what it did during spring and fall camp.
Yeah.
You're like, will this carry over the season? And
it's not.
You're kind of thinking like that's not going to happen. But like, if you get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, those are grounds for removal from the game, in my opinion. Where you get a holding call on an offensive lineman, you're not going to yank that guy out.
Right.
But there are certain things that like, if you're talking and running your mouth and you get a penalty, the Jack Jones or a Janae Harris, those penalties they've gotten in the past, like those should be like you need to take them out immediately. If you have to play a series without somebody, tell them they're hurting your teammates. He says that all the time when I told him, they're just hurting their teammates and, they're not playing for their brothers when you make a penalty like that. Well, force them to sit out and watch them. And if it's your best player,
and then you give up a touchdown or something, and it's like they feel bad.
And you
about
go
it.
over to them immediately and say, "Look, that's your fault.
Yeah.
You just did that.
Yeah,
I wasn't on the field, coach. Yeah, that's why."
Yeah. But as far as takeaways, I mean, where does this team go 3-2 at the halfway point of the season, heading into the bye week? Like we said, Clay Helton said he's not going to do major changes. It's just cleaning up things. He did say it's a good time for the bye week with injuries and whatnot. But if you're Clay Helton, how do you right the ship right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you've lost the fan base, which is important. You have a bye week. There's not going to be a whole lot of interest heading into the Notre Dame game. There's not going to be a lot of optimism. The only thing you can do is beat Notre Dame. Because if you don't, I mean, that's all that matters at this point. You have to beat Notre Dame. If you don't, you're 3-3 and you're coming home with an easier stretch of games for sure. But you're talking homecoming with Arizona, that's going to be dead. Like the Coliseum will be dead. Like people have lost interest. And Keely and I were kind of talking about this before. When we had that, just listening to Clay's conference call tonight was like kind of a surreal experience. Reading what Dan Weber wrote, that he hasn't not asked a question in over a decade, and he was just done. He wasn't going to ask a question tonight. I'm like, wow. Like we weren't sure if he forgot about the call or whatever, but he purposely did not ask a question. And it's sort of like when you're if you're in a relationship and there's all this fighting and stuff going on. We were thinking about good analogies. This is good. So
you were. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're in a relationship. There's a lot of fighting. You care. There's passion, at least. You know that there's something there. When you stop fighting, and you don't care anymore. That's where it seems like the fans are, and the people that we've talked to on these road trips or whatever, where they're just like, yeah, it's just they're just kind of over it, and there's a sense of apathy, which is not a good word. You want them to care, and you want them to be. And there's a lot of fans that are watching right now that because they're mad, and we got really big numbers and people writing in questions and stuff, people calling in, but there's just a lot of people that are just over it, and they're like, you know what? Instead, I really wanted to go to the USC game, but I'm going to go to my kid's soccer practice or something, or whatever it is. Like, not that you'd miss it, right? But people would revolve their weekends around USC football, and they're willing to walk away from that now and do other things. And you're in Southern California, there's a lot of other things you can do. The guy I talked to on the plane, he's like, yeah, he took his son fishing for salmon. They did, they went skydiving. Like according to his son, they had like the greatest weekend ever in Seattle. Even though USC lost, it was sort of like, yeah, whatever. Like, and that's just like you can do that, and that's where I feel it's bad for this program that's where it's gotten. And I think there's some stuff in Clay Helton's control that he could kind of fix some of it. I mean, certainly on the field, there's things that you could do differently that he seems pretty stubborn about not wanting to do. So that's his prerogative. But even when you're addressing it afterwards, it's kind of the same message over and over again, and it's falling on deaf ears, I think, with a lot of the fans.
You mentioned callers. We have a full call queue, so we'll get to that soon. But I just want to push back a little bit, Ryan, on your point. You said that Notre Dame is a must-win. I don't think it is, because I can already see it playing out. They lose to Notre Dame. It's a tough non-conference game, but we still have a shot in the South. We still have a control our destiny to get to the Pac-12 championship game. I can see this being spun very easily and it not being that much of a must-win game.
I mean, that's exactly right. But you're going to be listening to the Clay Helton speak.
That's the Helton version
of it. And the fans don't care. Like when he's focusing on you're this close against tough teams, and one of those tough teams is a team that just lost to Toledo, BYU. Like they know that that's not true. And also, focusing on winning the Pac-12 South is not something USC fans grew up wanting to do. Like that doesn't matter to them. Like 2017, winning the Pac-12. USC fans don't look back on that season with a lot of glee and like, oh, yeah, it was great getting smoked by Notre Dame and Ohio State. Like, no, that doesn't matter. So Clay Helton's kind of grasping at what he can do right now. It really was, you got to make some kind of run and try to win a championship, and they're not doing that. So, yes, in the spin of things, it will be another out-of-conference loss if they lose. That doesn't matter. But the fans have already been lost. Like, you're never getting them back, losing to Notre Dame again.
Yeah, I guess my point is that it just speaks to how much I think the goalposts have been moved of where this team should be, what the goals are, and the standard that you're setting for this team. And so I can see it being spun in the future.
Yeah, I think Clay Helton's setting a certain standard or trying to reset the standard to something lower than what the fans want, and not even able to achieve that lower standard is really tough on the fans. I don't know. Do you agree? What do you think, Shotgun?
I mean, I think they can beat Notre Dame. I'm just going to go ahead and say that now. I think that's a winnable game to go win, especially with an extra week of preparation. But I think what you would hear after it is going to be very similar to what Keely said if they do lose. I think that the focus has been to win a Pac-12 championship. Now, if you're looking at the grand scheme of things, you have to win your conference championship to have a chance at the playoffs. I mean, look at Notre Dame last year. They were fighting to get in. So you basically have to win your conference unless you're from the SEC. So that should be the first goal, but it shouldn't be the main goal. That should be the first of three goals: conference championship, playoff, national championship. But it's become the top goal for USC because that's become what is attainable.
Yeah.
Especially when you lose up to BYU, that's a terrible loss. If you go undefeated after that, you're going to be in the conversation, but are you definitely going to be in? You don't know.
Yeah.
So
Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech that one year, right, and then made the playoff. But
Virginia Tech
you needed to
a lot
make
better
a run.
than BYU.
Yeah.
But now, 2 losses, you're not getting in the playoffs. So now, what is attainable is the conference championship. So that's going to have to be their goal. But beating Notre Dame would take a long way to the overarching goal for Clay Helton of keeping his job.
Yeah.
Because you lose to them, that's another rivalry loss. Obviously, you're 3-3. Your seat becomes even more warm then.
Yep. Let's actually go to our live callers because they've been waiting for a little bit. Hold on. Give me a second. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hi.
This is Zach from PDX. And I had 2 questions. One is, why are we limiting the punter? I was first row in Seattle, and he was kicking from their 40 to the back of our end zone over and over again. And then the second question is, do you guys think Step is a better fit for the offense? It just seems like they're using Vi and Step in the same manner. But when Step runs the ball, he's knocking people on the ground and then keeps going, whereas Vi gets tackled and then he just gets tackled. And that's it.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Is it Zach? Was it Zach that he said? Zach.
Yes.
So thanks for the call, and thanks for calling in and being patient. I thought in the beginning it was pretty bad. The first 2 punts netted 24
First
yards.
one was 25 yards, I think.
I think it was 24, and the second one was like 31 with the return of 7. Like they both netted 24 yards, and so those were bad. But then it got better. He punted better after that, and you're seeing what we see in practice. I can't tell you why, if they're what's going on there, but it does seem like there's some some coaching going on that maybe he's not doing enough. And then you almost got the feeling that he was being coached the first 2 punts, and then it was like just punt it after that.
Yeah, and which was interesting that this was a game that kind of let him go a bit because Aaron Fuller had just come off of a punt return touchdown. So it's like, is this the guy you really want to kind of let loose? But they did, they trusted the coverage units a little bit more in this game and let him kick it a little bit farther. And even though there was the potential of a return, instead of basically 90% of his punts previously had been fair caught. So I thought it was a little bit changed there. And I even wrote down after the first punt is that he needs to change his target line when he's aiming for the red zone punts, because he's kicked. I'm going to go back and look it up, but there's too many pooch punts that have landed between the 15 and 20 yard line. Or be caught there. So his target should be the 5 to 10 yard line, because if it goes in the end zone, you get it at the 20.
Yeah.
So
17 or 20, who cares? You want to try to put him inside.
So be a little bit more aggressive, and I think that's something that happened in this game is they let him be a little bit more aggressive there. I think that switch just happened after those first couple punts.
I think the 2 punts netting 24 yards, you're like, okay, this isn't working. But we've seen that it hasn't been working from the first game, but whatever, it took a while to get that going.
I think maybe going forward you'll see him, kind of just extend his leg a little bit more and go for, and USC's punt team be a little bit more aggressive than we've seen.
Yeah. And for Steph, it depends on the game. I think there's different styles that work against different fronts, but they have 3 backs that all bring something different. They all worked well in this game, so I wouldn't complain about how any of the running backs. Vi had some really great plays. Stephen Carr, you got to see more of him like you saw the first couple games that we didn't really see the last 2.
I think it goes back to what I said last week, looking at that Utah game, was if you're going to create a hole, then Stephen Carr needs to be in there because you see what he can do, when he gets a little room. Whereas if there's no hole, Marquis Stepp's probably a better option because he's going to burst through, he's going to bang through a guy and fall forward for at least 3 or 4 yards. Vi's kind of the in-between guy. There was a question earlier, I'm missing it right now, but that said, why are we playing the first running back when the second and third running backs are playing better? And they wanted me to let you 2 guys enter it instead of me entering it.
Oh. Well, I in that game, they all played well.
That's what I thought.
There's not –
Yeah.
Did you feel like
if you asked this question last week, people would be like, "You're crazy. Stephen Carr sucks now because he didn't have a bunch of running room in the Utah game."
No, but he had better room. He ran the ball really well. He had some huge plays.
All right, let's move on to our next caller. We got a lot of things to move on to, guys. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Yeah, it's Andrew in San Diego.
Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
I just had a couple. Hey, how's it going, guys? So, number one, I don't think we have a single chance of beating Notre Dame with the way they're running the ball. And then number two, if Helton was relieved, who on the staff could step up and take the reins? John Baxter is the most senior, but is he even sane enough to coach the team? Thanks, guys.
I think he's sane, Andrew, but
Thank
I don't know.
you.
Yeah, you might have. There's not a lot of good options, and that's part of the problem.
We've answered this before. I think it would be Mike Jenks.
Probably
He's
Mike
been a head
Jenks.
coach before.
He's the only one that's been a head coach, but it was 2 pretty bad years at Bowling Green.
I'll answer that question if it happens.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions already that say, I know Shotgun doesn't like hypotheticals, but, so at least you've made it known, Shotgun.
Yeah. And what was the first question? It was
He doesn't think USC has any chance to beat Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah, I think.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, USC's super talented. Like when you see Washington roll over teams, Utah rolling over teams, they can't do that to USC. They're better coached, but the players, they don't have as good players as USC. So whenever you have athletes, it makes it tougher. Now, Notre Dame, USC could get boat raced. It could be 2-3 touchdown kind of game, but if they're in the game and have a chance to win it, I wouldn't be shocked either. So I don't think there's no chance. People think Clay Helton's so bad of a head coach, there's no chance to win. USC could have beat Washington easily. They just play a little better because they have the players. Like the players are still there.
If you take away turnovers in both the Utah and the Washington game, I think USC probably played better against Washington.
Yeah,
I saw more positives in the Washington game than I did in the
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah.
The
it's
one
a head scratcher that USC beat Utah. Yeah,
I know,
it's good.
and the big positive was Michael Pittman's a beast.
Yes.
And Matt Fink came in and showed he wasn't scared. But there was a lot of things that have been confounding to USC, especially on the defensive side with the tackling issues that I thought they cleaned up in this game.
A lot better.
If you build on that and you have an extra week to practice, and if you actually tackle in practice, then I think they could have a really good,
How could you suggest that? Why would you tackle in practice? Wait for the games, Shotgun. Wait for the games.
If you build on what they did, they took better angles for the most part. The touchdown run was the big whiff there. Obviously, the 89-yard touchdown. Chase Williams misses him in the hole. That's where you miss Talanoa Hufanga. You know, Talanoa Hufanga is not missing many people. And then Isaiah Paul-Mao took a bad angle and basically ran into the referee. So, but otherwise, I thought their angles were much better this game. I thought they did a better job on the edge plays that they've really struggled with, and they even stopped a misdirection play for the first time. Getting the fumble on that. And because I wrote actually earlier in my notes is like every time someone runs a misdirection, the first time it fools USC. Because they ran something earlier in the game and end around or something, and got a good gain out of it. But I thought they finally stopped.
I mean, the trick play. Well, the trick play was awful. Like that was terribly executed. I mean, no, Kurt Steele was right there.
No, it was terribly executed because Palia Naitiote blew it up. He took out the blocker, and that was when Hunter Bryant was trying to pitch it, so he got taken out too. He took out 2 guys with 1, and that's why the throw was off. That was a defensive play that was made.
That's fair. I mean,
you can clearly tell who's had time to rewatch the game and who's been traveling. It's definitely Shotgun.
I rewatched the game on my phone while I was traveling today.
Yeah, okay.
But it looked like it was screwed up from the start before Pallier even got his head in there. But it just didn't seem like a well-conceived play. But yes, good job on him and Chris Steele was right there. He was in the backfield to clean it up and jump on it, so he was excited to get that. It was a big play. I mean, that was the only turnover of the game that USC got, so it was a big play.
Let's move on to our next caller in the queue. If it will load. Hello, you're live on television.
Hey guys, what's up? It's John from Glendora.
John, we lost you. Oh, he just dropped out. Sorry, John.
John, sorry.
You can call us back.
Call back.
Another Glendora guy. Yeah, well, no, he called before.
He's the same Glendora guy.
Yeah, but Matt Fink's from Rancho Cucamonga, not Glendora. He went to Glendora High.
Oh, there we go. Correction there.
Still from Glendora. If you
Still
go
the
to high
same
school
thing.
there, that's the same to me.
All right.
Let's move on to questions since we lost our caller. Jacob on YouTube says, "Are these same mistakes getting old, as in penalties and not being prepared?"
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's hard to look at it. And I said last week is this just the team they're going to be? But we saw some improvements this week. A lot of the things I just talked about with the defense in particular, that you can show some improvement. The offensive line showed some improvements going against a 3-man front when they struggled so much against BYU and then the front of Utah. So there are some positives that you can take out of this game. I know nobody really wants to take any positives out of this game, but there are some.
They don't. No, you're right. But it's one of those things where it's nice, and if this was not coming after a 5-7 season where there wasn't time to have growing pains this season. There wasn't time for that. This year was time to win. Like there was all the changes you made after 5-7. Everyone wanted a bigger change, changing the head coach. That didn't happen. So it was sort of this year, no time to fix things or whatever. Just fix it all in the offseason and come out and win. You still had the number 4 roster in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. You're more talented than every team you play, according to the recruiting rankings. No time to be 3-2. No time to lose to BYU. So yes, maybe making small improvements is fine, but it's like your house is burning down and you're hanging a picture or something. And it's like, oh, that picture was. It took us months to hang that picture. It's great. Like the back of the house is burning down. Like who cares?
Sorry, John. We didn't hang up on you. It lost connection. So call back. He was angry. We didn't do it. But to your point,
I think Keely hung up on you, John.
No, that's false. To Shotgun's point, and we had kind of talked about this before the show started, in a vacuum, I don't think this game was that bad. But the problem is we're not in a vacuum. It's a greater context of Clay Helton and the staff and the problems that have continued for seasons now. So that's where it's kind of this wishy-washy thing about this game where you're like, oh, they actually did improve. Maybe it was turnovers like they're saying, but in the context, you can't have another loss like this.
Yeah, like if you were going to be 10-2, but you lost this game, you're 9-3, and you just missed out on the Rose Bowl, you're going to the Holiday Bowl or something instead. And I think all the things he said would make sense, but this is not that. Can't do that in this context.
Didn't lose to BYU. This game wouldn't look that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be disappointed for sure, but it wouldn't be.
You'd be like, it's fake.
All is over.
Third string quarterback injuries, etc. But
right. But there's really no excuse. Like sometimes people say that too. Like, well, it was the backup quarterback, and you're like, no. Like, look, this is no. The time for excuses have passed. You have to win. You have the good enough players to win. And if Matt Fink isn't as good as you want him to be, this is his 4th year in your program. You've coached him for 4 years. So if he's still around, and he is, and he made some mistakes, but he balled out against Utah. He's playing his heart out there. You got to give credit to Matt Fink for what he's trying to do. But that's on you as coaches for what, you could have kept Jack Sears around if that was, the case.
And also in the grander scheme, because they cannot blow people out, Matt Fink does not have more experience.
Yes.
If you have blown teams out the last 3 years, he's gotten more than, a handful of plays coming into this year. So I think that played into it too. He looked like an inexperienced quarterback in that game. There were a couple throws that there was a couple times where he left the pocket too soon. Just things that were a guy making his first start on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a hard thing to do. Jasper Smith on YouTube says, why on earth would the coaching staff not throw the fade play to Pittman instead of Drake London?
The simple answer is that if Pittman's over there with Tyler Vaughns, then they're going to shift extra coverage that way. But my opinion is you throw it to Tyler Vaughns because he was wide open.
There are some weird things going on, and we think Drake London is going to be a great player, but there just seems to be bad things happen when you throw the ball to him for some reason.
I love the matchup because they got him against Miles Bryant, who's like 5'9". Drake London can jump out the gym.
Yeah, but he's like their best defensive player.
You were supposed to throw the ball up. Now, would I have called it on fourth down? No.
Yeah.
If that was like a first down play or something, yeah, you got a chance. That's fine. But Tyler Vaughns was open on that play. And he was already made his mind up that he was throwing that pass before, where if you throw it and it was a bullet pass, there was no one in the way. It wasn't the things that had given him trouble on the other throws in the red zone. He was wide open. He didn't throw that pass.
The weird thing for me is we were told that there was going to be a lot of wide receivers playing. Like it was going to be 8 to 10 play. That's not been the case at all. It's the starters and they play, and that's pretty much it. And that's fine. But if you were going to rotate 8, 10 guys in there, and then when it's 4th and 1, and Drake London's already caught a couple passes because he's like the 4th or 5th guy in, fine, and you want to throw him the ball. When you're really only throwing to your big three, I don't think you can go away from your big three on a critical down and try to get somebody his first catch. And it's just, we've seen that happen a lot. And if it's a spread around offense, fine. All 8, 10 guys catching balls, good. If it's only your big three, you can't throw to one of them, not the big three, on 4th down.
Again, I like the play, just not at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the Family Feud podcast, Shotgun, you and I had specifically talked about we were very anti going to inexperienced / young players on critical plays in the game. So we kind of predicted it a little bit there. Let's go to a Facebook question from Alan. He says, question for Shotgun. And Shotgun, I've actually heard you talk about this a little bit. He said, Brock Heward said on the Fox broadcast that the offense was telegraphing their plays based on where the running back starts in the formation. That seemed accurate to me. Your thoughts?
So I've noticed this, and I didn't want to bring it up until I had a chance to talk to Graham Harrell. Obviously, it's very hard to talk to Graham Harrell one-on-one, and it's not a scrum question because it's basically saying, I can see what run you're going to do every time that you do a run. And because that's what it seems like. Because when the running back is right beside the quarterback, they run outside if they run the ball. Now, there are counters on these plays. They don't always run the ball. They run play action out of these same things. So it's not like it's, okay, they're definitely running this play.
It's not the biggest tell in the world.
We know exactly what it is. But you know the direction of the run. You're going to run outside, and maybe you can cut back inside. And if the running back lines up behind, a step behind the quarterback, then it's going to be an inside run, and you can bounce it outside if that proves to be the thing. But it's just kind of giving away the direction, whereas – and that's kind of been the – if you're in a shotgun formation, and you try to run the ball, you usually know which way it's going, unless you do a quick pitch or you do some speed option type stuff, which they did a pitch out of it against Utah. It did not work very well because a wide receiver missed the block. But it is something I've noticed as well. But like I said, I didn't want to bring it up necessarily.
Is it always out of shotgun, or is there some pistol? They don't do a lot of pistol.
They did use some pistol this game, even though they had not the last couple games.
Yeah.
So the thing about the pistol is it gives you more options there. There's a little bit of the defense doesn't know exactly which direction, which is why I kind of like mixing.
So you're a little
bit
closer to the center and the pistol, if you don't. Yeah.
But the running back can go any direction there. Whereas if you're in the shotgun, you're basically going to run the direction where the quarterback is. Now, when they back him up, it's to get going downhill, and that's when you see Marquise step. Probably 75%, if not more, of his plays he's been a step back because he's an inside runner.
He's going to be a power,
So, yes, I've noticed that as well. But, again, haven't had a chance to talk to Graham Harrell. And they've done a couple things to counter off of it, but they haven't done much. It's been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Good job there,
But
Shotgun.
that's probably not a good thing if that's on the broadcast, too. So
True.
I was going to bring it up this week since it was in the broadcast.
Thanks, Alan.
Let's go back to our caller since we have a lot in the queue. Hello, you are live on Tunnel Vision.
Hey guys. Just calling with a couple quick questions. My name is James, and the first question is, I noticed Stephen Carr obviously had some good, nice break open runs, and he may be more of a shifty type of a back rather than just a true burner. But it seemed like he had a couple of open lanes just to get into the end zone. He just couldn't break off and get away from those defenders. Have you noticed something where it still seems like he might still be not completely there, where he can kind of accelerate and pull away? And the second question is regarding the ongoing AD search. Have you heard any news about, I don't know, someone in the Pac-12, maybe like a Pat Chun, who's been kind of tossed out there? Have you heard anything about anyone being contacted? Thank you. Fight on.
Thanks.
Thanks for the call.
What did Carr average, like 13 yards a carry or something? Like, I don't know if I want to be complaining about him.
I think it was more actually a product of how deep their safeties are playing. So it's much harder to turn the corner and be gone. Because Isaiah pulled him out, the one they had run, he comes in, there's no one there. So once you break through, it was 7 yards past the line of scrimmage, basically, Salvan Ahmed was gone. And there was nobody going to be able to catch him. Whereas Carr, I thought actually I saw there was one play, his longest run, you saw him actually beat someone, break the angle, is what I call. I don't know what should be called, but he broke the angle of the defender and turned the corner when the guy should have stopped him for a 13-yard gain or something. Instead, he got around. And there's another guy from way across the field coming over to stop him. I don't think that's necessarily something I've seen. I haven't been like, it's just not there. Whereas last year there were times when you would see him turn the corner and someone would catch him and you're just like, that doesn't look right. I think it's kind of the opposite this year. There's been a couple times, the Stanford run, obviously, where he turns the corner for a touchdown. I think there's been a couple of them where you see that burst is there. Maybe it hasn't been consistent because he hasn't had a ton of open lanes and stuff. But when he's had a chance, he's done it a couple times where he's broken the angle of a defender.
And the AD stuff, I don't think they have. The only timeline I've heard is they want something by the end of the season. There's definitely meetings and names and things being tossed around internally. They're bringing things up. One of the issues in the athletic department was that it's kind of top heavy. There's a lot of good people that work there, but they don't really have a voice. I mean, they just really weren't being listened to. So I think there's more meetings going on where there's more collaboration. So I think that's a good thing. They need to make, they have to make a move as quickly as possible and get the right guy. We've heard a lot of Pac-12 names. You mentioned Chung from Washington State. We'll see which way they end up going. But I think you got to give Carol Folt a little credit here. She seems to come in and want to do the right thing. I mean, getting rid of Lynn Swan was the absolute must. If she would have done it July 2nd, I would have really been impressed. But, it took a little while, but it's fine. I think she took a couple months and did what she needed to do. Now you kind of go forward. And they've been looking for a while, but there's definitely internal things going on. So we'll see. I mean, you'll know when you know. And you just got to hope that if you're a USC fan, you just got to hope they make a good hire this time, unlike the last three.
Alrighty, let's go to our next caller. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Yes, hey, how you guys doing? My name's Roland. I'm calling from Oklahoma City.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty far. My question is, I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing parents of players complaining about Coach Helton. I mean, just blatantly saying things that we all say. And I'm just numb to it. It's done. Like, everyone knows it. Do you guys feel like the players, I mean, they see everything we see. Do you feel like they've lost the team because we know what's going to happen, what's the inevitable? I mean, everybody knows. And it's just that they're playing harder, but it's just the same old mistakes. And like you guys said, it's just done. Everyone knows it. My thought is I feel like he's losing the players now. If their parents are openly disrespecting the coach, everybody sees that. So that's my question. Just wondering if you guys agree. Have a good night.
Thanks for calling,
Thanks.
Roland.
Yeah, there's definitely been some. You've seen that. You've seen Keyshawn Johnson tweet out, the definition of tarmac.
We got a couple questions about that. Yeah.
Yeah. We've all, I think, been contacted by players' parents that are not happy. I'm not sure that the players are all not on board. I mean, I think there's some. You're not going to get to where you are right now and not have some dissension, but I mean, Clay Helton's still liked by a lot of those players, but I feel like there's, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think if hypothetically saying that he's lost the team, I don't think you would have seen the fight you saw on the team yesterday.
I don't think he's lost the team.
No, I don't think so. You would have seen them give up when it was like, I believe 21-7 was the score.
28-7.
Yeah, 28-7. You would have seen them giving up after that. So I don't think that he's lost the team in that sense.
Yeah.
And you should also point out that many of the parents are fans too. So,
Yes.
Some of them are on our message boards and stuff. They read all the same stuff as a lot of
They're
you guys.
watching
They're
the-
watching the show.
Yeah.
They are concerned about the program and the direction it's at right now too. They want USC to be good. Some of them, they want USC to be good regardless, but they also want USC to be good for their son.
Yeah.
They want their son to have a great, college career, a great college opportunity. So, but also a lot of them grew up USC fans, especially the local kids. So that's part of the reason why they're really invested in this too. You guys just got to remember they're human beings too. They want USC to win as well.
Yeah, we got a Periscope one. We've had some people.
Thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to ignore the Periscope. We got a lot of people on Periscope.
Shouts to Periscope.
Jackson SF, I think we know Jackson. In a week, Clay Helton has been the head coach for USC for 5 years. Is the program stronger?
Ooh.
That's a very good question right there.
It's very good. So remember back when he took over?
I think the program is settled.
It's more settled. There's not as much off-the-field turmoil.
But the athletic department's not settled, so.
Yeah. The athletic department's kind of burning down around him. I don't think the football program is in a stronger place because not just the 5-7 stuff, but recruiting is as bad as we've ever seen. And this over a year in purgatory in limbo after, starting off 3-2 last year and then finishing 5-7. 3-2 2 years in a row. That's probably not a good sign. But the way recruiting has gone, not finishing strong last year because of the bad year, and really kind of being saved by having 2 guys transfer in, and Chris Steele and Brew McCoy, and then getting even Drew Richmond to be a grad transfer coming in. USC's 62nd in the country right now in recruiting rankings, behind powers like North Texas and I think Louisiana State and
Louisiana
Tech and things
Louisiana
like that.
State is actually a pretty good football program run by a
Oh,
former
no,
USC
Louisiana
coach.
State, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're good. That's a good
Maybe.
one. Sorry. Louisiana State
Well done.
is top 5 because at Orgeron. Would they have been better off with their Orgeron? Yes. But no. Yeah, so I don't think USC is not in a better place than it was when Clay Helton took over. I'm pretty confident in that. Do you guys agree, disagree? What do you think?
The thing that's interesting to me is sometimes you kind of get caught in the rhetoric, and I think a lot of it when Clay Helton was first beginning, it was about a lot about learning. We'll get better. We'll correct the mistakes. It'll happen. And then you get to this point and you kind of just hear the same thing. I mean, he said it's a learning lesson today on things that he said he'd fix prior to the season. And I think that just continues. It's this constant, almost excuse-like factory of it'll get better. We'll clean it up, but there's no actual result. And so I sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. And so that inconsistency is where I just think it's not going well for USC.
I don't think it's stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shotgun with the easy answer there.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. Nice question, Jackson.
Every once in a while, I can answer something succinctly.
Well done. Proud of you. Let's jump back into questions. We have a Facebook question from Chris who says, so who do each of you pick for starting QB going into Notre Dame, assuming that Keaton Slovis is cleared?
Oh, interesting.
I think you go with Slovis.
Yeah.
I think you do too.
The coaches think is better. That's why he was higher on the depth chart, so I think he would be back in there.
But, neither guy had a great start on the road. But, yeah, I think if the coaches like Slovis, you got to go with the guy that you liked more, unless something really they got impressed with Matt Fink. But I feel bad. Like I didn't think, Fink made some bad decisions, made some bad throws or whatever. But for, it wasn't any worse than what Slovis did against BYU, and there was much better defense and a much tougher environment, I would say, at Washington than BYU.
And if JT Daniels was playing, they would have beat Washington. Because the thing they weren't doing well, they weren't moving the ball consistently, was what he did so well in the fall.
Yeah.
And I think he just has more experience on the road and stuff. He wouldn't have thrown the 3 interceptions. Now, he threw interceptions last year, but I think he had improved enough this year that he would have taken a little bit better care of the ball, especially because it's not his first road start like it was Matt Fink. So I think they would have won the game, actually, if JT. I just think that his skill set and the way he runs the offense would have fit better against the way that defense plays with their safeties 15 yards off the ball.
Yep.
And some people would say, well, would they have won? Would they have beat Utah with JT Daniels? They could have lost that game if he was, if it wasn't hero ball.
I think they still would have thrown up. I mean, there was only one real throw, the big Michael Pittman touchdown. Besides that, Matt Fink never really threw into double coverage much. He took what they were giving, which was they were doing those slot fades and running it out against cover.
But there were
one.
a lot of big plays. There weren't.
There were big plays.
Yeah, it was
but
explosive plays.
It's not like JT Daniels didn't throw the ball deep last year.
No, he did. But this year
It was
he was
all
throwing,
hero ball last year. So if that
but
was the
this year
recipe
it
for
was
the
more-
Utah game, it would have worked.
Right, but this year there would have been more movement. And I thought Matt Fink did the pretty good job early on. They seemed like they were like air raiding it, like moving the ball down the field. And then I don't know, for whatever reason, they started running the football more. But they drop more guys in the coverage, and you don't see them, and you throw a pick, and there we
Alrighty,
are.
let's move on to our next question. It comes from Andrew on YouTube, who says, "Which position group have you seen exceed expectations? If none, what player has exceeded expectations?"
Defensive line and I think the cornerbacks.
The defensive line has exceeded your expectations?
Yeah, I think they're bordering on elite if they're not elite. Tuipulotu and Jay Tufele in the middle are monsters right now. I mean, both of those guys are using their hands so well and just being in the backfield. So you got to double team. If you want to have success, you have to double team both of them, which obviously you can't do as an offensive line. Those guys both are really, really good right now. And that's what's helping the defense a lot more. If they were struggling, because I think they said on the broadcast that Chris Peterson was really wanting to get a stalemate against those two guys. It's like we can just keep those guys from getting in the backfield and disrupting everything. We don't have to have the best block on them, but if we just don't let them be disruptors, then they should have success. That was their goal, and I think those guys still. I think they're changing the rest of the defensive play around them because of what they're able to do right in the middle.
They do stuff the middle well, but I feel like you need to generate more sacks if you're going to be an elite defensive line.
That's why I
said
said they're bordering on elite.
Sacks. Yeah, they've missed a bunch. Was there any sacks in this game?
Yes, they had 2 at least.
2 sacks. I left my sheet over there for some reason. I have my stats on it.
Max Williams had a sack.
Okay.
There was pressure from someone else, and he ended up getting the sack. Because both times Jacob Eason slid down. That's why I remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the one time he sacked himself on that one time. Like, he got away from pressure, then he went outside, and then instead of just like, that's when you throw the ball away, he like slid down. Yeah. You're like, that was a really weird play. Jacob Eason was not that impressive to me. He was 180 yards. Like, it's just, I've seen him play really well at other games, but he wasn't making like, if you're playing Justin Herbert and it's like 3rd and 15, he hits that 18-yard play. You're like, man, that was just a great throw. Like, I didn't see Eason do that like at all. Like where he was.
There were some nice throws. There were arm strength throws, some outs and stuff. But I didn't like their offensive game plan as much.
Yeah.
And Burns said that they weren't expecting them to do what, as far as passing goes, they didn't expect him to do as many intermediate throws. They thought they were going to throw deep on them a lot, and they didn't really. So
they were talking on the broadcast about how their offensive coordinator had said that they wanted to take 8 shot plays. That was their goal, take 8. They had 0 in the first half. Now, early in the second half, they took multiple 15-yard down the field throws, but they didn't. Isaiah Paul-Mao did a good job breaking up the one over the middle with Hunter Bryant. A couple plays later, they try again against Isaiah Paul-Mao on the left side. He breaks that one up or he's right on the guy, and it's an overthrow. So I think that they weren't able to get those deep throws, and that kind of threw off what they were trying to do, I guess. But I thought that they would do more things where it would be one-on-one coverage type of thing, and just let him, a receiver. Maybe the receivers just weren't getting open. That could be part of it too.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't think the receivers are elite by any means or anything. But USC secondary played really well. Give them a lot of credit there.
Yeah. Ryan, you didn't say your position group that's exceeded expectations.
Hold on. Periscope. Christina 10 just said, Slovis. Oh, look, she's excited about Slovis or whatever.
Great, Ryan.
I think even the wide receivers, like they're the best, but they've played even better. Like without the wide receivers playing at the high level, like that's basically USC's chance to win every week is like throwing the football with the wide receivers. So I would go with them.
Alrighty. Kay on YouTube said, I asked after week 1, is this offense too basic? And you guys said, no, it's what the defense gives them type of mentality. Do you still believe that, or is it too vanilla like I asked?
They just need to take what the defense gives them.
Yeah, they're not doing
that's
that.
the issue I have with this game plan, at least. There were more opportunities to run the ball. 1st and 10, 2nd and 12. Like Brock Heward said the same thing. It's like, doesn't matter. You got to run the ball when you're facing 5 guys in the box. They didn't do that sometimes. That was the second one of the interceptions was on a 2nd and 12 play when they had 5 guys in the blocks and you could run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There was people on the Peristyle, I think, and on Twitter talking about, you guys were talking up Graham Harrell, and they only scored 14 points. I'm like, yeah, this offense shouldn't. I'm going to put some of this on Graham Harrell for sure.
They also were 5 times, I think, or 4 times inside Washington territory,
and didn't
and got 1 touchdown out of it or something like that.
Twice at 5 yards, I believe.
Which is it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But you're not doing that. But I think it's kind of those things. If we could do a food analogy, like if you're cooking in the kitchen and you have like this, a Cornish game hen, but someone was making like Limburger cheese and fish heads on your workstation before you get there, and you put your Cornish game head down, and it sort of gets some of the contamination from what was on there before. I'm just making this up. So the Cornish game head would have been amazing, but the where you're cooking it and how you're preparing it got contaminated. And is this offense getting contaminated from the culture and everything that was set up before? I don't know, but it doesn't look. The offense is not scoring points at the rate that I thought they should be, and so
someone asked, "Where's my 10 points, Ryan?" Because that was something you said.
It is, and I'm not seeing it. And I think it's the Limburger and fish heads that you were cooking with before that are still stuck in the room.
I don't have the stats to see what they're averaging right now, but I still think it's probably better than they were last year, right?
It was 26 a game last year, so it's probably similar, I would guess, because only 14 in this last game is going to hurt them.
At 45 against Stanford.
45, yeah.
So I'm trying to track this analogy here. What are you saying?
That there was contamination from the previous offense that is affecting this year's.
Meaning,
is what he's saying.
Are you saying that like Clay Helton is play calling? Like, is it
no,
going
I'm
that
not,
far? Okay, I just want to be clear here.
I'm just saying that like the way everything is being run, the reason we said you needed to make more changes than what was made in the offseason is because you have to get all of the stink out. And they didn't get all the stink out, and it's going to contaminate the good stuff that you bring in. And I feel like now you're not getting everything. They're not running the pure area. They didn't have 2 wide. You normally have 2 wide receivers coaches. They don't. Well, is that the reason you're only playing 3 or 4 guys? I don't know. But I'm saying they didn't go full on in. They only have 2 guys on the coaching staff that are air raid coaches. All of that stuff is like, well, does that make a difference? Like, maybe it does. You didn't fully go in. You got the main guy.
I get it now.
You got Jinx, but that's it. Drevno never, blocked air raid stuff. Like you only have 1 wide receiver coach, and he's a rookie. You normally have 2. It didn't seem like you fully bought into here's what this system does. And if you don't fully buy in and you don't get the result, the full results, is that because you didn't fully buy in? That's my thought.
Let's go to a Facebook question from Corey. He says, why can't SC throw against zone defense? It seems like all a defense has to do is stay in the zone to win. Do they not practice against zone in practice, or what do you think is going on?
It's impossible to throw. See, last year it was impossible to throw against cover 2. You couldn't throw, remember that? Remember there was like, well, they went to cover 2, so we couldn't throw the football. I don't know. It's over it.
Right.
They can still throw against zone defenses. They did a good job against Utah when they try to do some underneath zone stuff. They threw over the top of it. They're just not consistent right now. I think the best way to defend them right now is to play a zone defense, drop them back. But they have to run the ball and force teams out of it. Run the ball and then get the safeties or linebackers to react to the play action. Early in the game, Washington did not even react to play action fakes. Their linebackers would just go back into their zones. So if you run, and that was probably because they saw the Utah game and said, this team ain't going to run the ball.
Yeah.
This team ain't good enough to run against us. We'll stop them. And then when you start running it and popping them more, and that's when you get that long Michael Pittman touchdown because the safety was eyeing the play action, and he got caught flat-footed, and he turned his head back to Michael Pittman and was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
But I feel like that's the thing that Chris Peterson and Jimmy Lake were like, okay, don't let that happen again. And it, maybe that allowed USC to run the ball better than what they had. But they were willing to sort of like the reverse. There was like a bend but don't break thing. Like they weren't going to give up. They didn't want to give up the big play to Michael Pittman. So that was the 1 touchdown they gave up. But for the most part, they're going to like, okay, let him run the ball, get some first downs and stuff. We'll make a big play. We'll stop them, keep them out of the end zone, and that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah,
but the run game worked better for sure.
Yeah, their whole mentality is a bend but don't break defense. That's why you're playing your safety so deep. We're not going to give up the big play. They only gave up 1 play over 40 yards last year. They've only given up 1 so far this year going into the USC game. USC got 2. So USC got as many 40-yard plays as that defense had given up in a year and a half basically. So they did some nice things there, but that's the entire goal of Washington's defense: bend but don't break.
Let's go to a question from John. It's for Shotgun, but I'm going to ask it to everyone because I think it's interesting. He says, if you were the head coach, what would your priority be this next couple of weeks? I'm going to ignore what you just did there, Ryan.
Sorry. If you were the head coach, what would your priority be?
Yeah, the next couple of weeks.
I mean, if I was the head coach, a lot of things would change. We've talked about this before, and Clay Helton on the conference call was like, we're going to fix the little things. I think you have to go in and completely mix things up, and they come up with a plan, in August or whatever, and they just, whatever the plan was, they don't ever deviate from it, it seems like. So they're like, you know what do you feel like they were doing well or what are not doing well? You got to tackle better. We're going to get after the quarterback. You're going to run. You're going to tackle in practice. It's a bye week. If you get banged up a little bit, that's fine. You can rest over the weekend. I feel like just, that kind of stuff, just do it differently. I think you're going to lose players as you lose games, but as you lose interest because you're not doing anything different, it's the same thing over and over and over again. So if you walk into practice and everything looks different, you're doing, instead of the drill you do last, you do that first or whatever it is. You just mix things up and you change the routine to kind of like change the reaction for the players. They're 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. I think you got to mix it up some.
Yeah, so you just got to jumpstart them a little bit.
Yes.
Which means don't go with the same routine you've been doing. I would change that. I would like to see, especially on Tuesday, I would have a full all-out tackle practice.
Yes.
And that includes maybe John Houston and any fifth-year seniors, they can sit out. But everybody else needs to be in there. Now, maybe John Houston needs to be in there because he needs to tackle better. But I would have I would just do something completely different. That's not something you would do any other time in the year, but it's a bye week. So you're nursing some injuries. That's fine. Talanoa, you're not in. But everybody else, the guys that played in this game, even though they just played, I would have them back out there again and say, we've got to do these things better. Hey, we started on it against Washington. We got to take care of the ball better. I would have the defensive lineman actually tackle a quarterback. Even if it's a scout team, you have a scout team guy, put him back there. He gets hit. It's okay. Scott Harris can take a couple hits for you. That's what they're there for. They're scout team players. Even if you want to put, a wide receiver, it doesn't matter. They need to be able to tackle guys a little bit more to help them get those sacks eventually. Some of those that they missed earlier in the season. Those could be a couple things. And I would just, with the scout team in particular, I would have Matt Fink going over, and Keaton Slovis facing those zone coverages. When you drop, I would even do some drills where you have 9 defenders and
put extra guys.
Yeah, put extra guys and say, hey, you need to find extra windows.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't have the pass rush, so it's in your 7-on-7, it becomes 8-on-7. Just force extra defenders. I want you to make better reads. I want you to make better decisions. So if it's not there, I want to see you scramble, throw it away, whatever, instead of trying to force throws a little bit, because those are the throws over the middle that they've done. They forced them, or not seeing those underneath. And like the interception on the goal line, you have to work short to long on that, on an inside breaking route like that. He never saw the guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the turnover and penalty thing, you have to re-emphasize that. Whatever turnover drills you got, whatever punishments you can give out for not forcing a turnover or giving one up for the offense, I think you got to do that. You got to really, -7 is not going to get it done.
Yeah, that's a huge stat. Huge. That's probably the biggest stat of the season right now.
Yeah.
Yep. And on the same topic, we got a comment from Tommy on Facebook. He says, these things that you're suggesting are good, but is this the thinking of the coaching staff? You all should know better than us because you're on the team.
We were asked what we would do, so that's
True.
No, but that's not what they're going to do. So we know that going.
That is not what they've done in the past.
Yes.
How about,
for 5 years now.
And when Clay was asked about doing something different or more changes than doing some fundamental changes, he was not saying he was going to do that.
Yes. Let's go back into callers. Oops, as I take us off there, because we have a lot in the queue. Let's go to our first caller. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hey guys, John from Glendora calling back. I just got a couple quick questions. I feel like if Clay Helton doesn't win at Notre Dame, that's it. It's over. Let's get rid of him. Let's move on. The other thing is, really simple. Why isn't Marquis Steps getting the ball on 4th and 2? That's it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks,
from
John.
Glendora. Sorry,
didn't hang up
Keely.
on you,
Sorry,
John.
Keely hung up on you.
No,
was the
I
4th
did
and 2 the
not.
4th and goal play that we're referencing?
I think is that the one that was.
I think that because that's the only other time they went for 4th down, they got it 4th and 7. But 4th and 2 at the goal line, they actually tried to run the ball. I think 3 times in a row or 2 times on 1st and 2nd down. Didn't really get much. So it's hard on 4th down. I would like to see a little bit more. I'm just going to go back to Tyler Vaughn's was open.
Yeah.
If he throws the ball, Tyler Vaughn's is a touchdown. Maybe you run something with an option for Matt Fink to use his legs rather than kind of a fade, which is a quick throw. The quarterback's throwing the ball, in the first second of the play, basically. So maybe you do something where he rolls out to give him a couple more options. There's some different things you could have done, but I'll go back to the play that was called. There was a guy that was wide open for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, well, that's a terrible call. I think it was more a terrible decision to throw it to the back receiver when the short one was open.
I will say, though, interesting thing I noticed was I think it was after the Marquise Stepp 30-yard run. It was Stephen Carr, then it was Stepp who broke off. Vi was actually supposed to come in the next play, and Clay stopped him and said Stepp's going back in. So they're changing it. So I think Stepp is getting more of his time. So.
Yeah, he got a first down carry, and then they took him out like at the second down. It was really weird.
They've done sometimes, especially later in games, they've used all three running backs on 3 straight plays. That's something that's happened a couple times. The biggest difference, the biggest one thing that tells you that Marquise Stepp is stepped farther into the rotation, he got a first.
No pun intended.
He got a first quarter carry. First time. That's the first time he's got a first quarter carry in his career. So that tells you that they are wanting to use him more. And that's something I talked about Keely last week on the Family Feud podcast, I believe it was, that if you're going to use him, if you're going to implement how can you incorporate him a little bit more? You need to get him in earlier in the game. And so then when it comes to a 4th and 1 or something, it's not like, well, we can't put him in because we haven't used him all the entire game.
Right.
That's what started our anti-putting players in at a critical moment for the first time, and et cetera.
We had a quick one on Periscope. Hobley
Sure.
80. Do y'all
Thanks for the call, John.
Thanks, John. We'd already hung up on him, right? Or you already
No.
Do you hung up on him twice now? Okay.
Okay.
Did y'all get a chance to see the Wendy's View Party during the game? Better than the game. So this is the one. Was that the one that had Lendell White and Stephen Smith?
I thought you were talking about the Wendy's boat.
I have no clue what you're referencing.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw on Twitter. I didn't get to go back and watch it, but apparently it was fun. I think Lendell White was on there and sort of giving his takes on what was going on. It was but I haven't had a chance. We were traveling and stuff all day today, but Hobley, I will definitely try to check that out. But yeah, there was Wendy's had a barge out there. If you had a boat, you could go get some Wendy's. It's a beautiful scenario. Like if you go watch our Twitter feed, it's so pretty. Everything up there. But 12:30 game, you don't get as much tailgating because it's early. But 2016 when we went up there, it was a night game, and we did some video feature of the tailgating, and that was really neat.
Cool stuff. Let's go back into callers now. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hi, this is Chris from Glendora.
Glendora, back to back. Sorry.
I
was excited about Glendora, apparently.
Glendora.
Yep.
But I have a couple of observations that I wanted to point out, and I wanted to get you guys' thought. So it seems to me, well, first off, USC has 6 turnovers on the road, and, we're 0-2. And it also seems like when our offense faces adversity, it seems like the coaches panic. And it seems like when we get into the red zone, and more so from this game, when we got into the red zone, it looked like we were just very predictable. Run, pass. Run, pass. Like, we rarely did anything to get, receivers open. And when I have a friend who plays for Washington State. His name is Aesop Winston Jr., one of the best receivers in the Pac-12. When I watch Washington State run the air raid, USC doesn't look anything like that. Like, nothing like that. And then I just wanted to shout out USC DBs. I thought they played very well. Chris Steele and Isaac Taylor Stewart. I thought they played really well. And also Greg Johnson. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, they did. They played. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on the USC DBs to play well in this game.
Yep.
And they did. So that's with your two biggest names out, the fact that they were able to play as well as they did, it was a great step.
Yeah.
Going to the play calling, I don't necessarily think that I thought it was predictable in the red zone. It's just the field compacts. Those safeties that were 15 yards away, now they're 5 yards away, especially when you get by the goal line. So it changes what you have to do. You have to be able to have to block a little bit better, especially because you're not getting those 5-man boxes anymore when those safeties are now at the line of scrimmage or 5 yards off. Suddenly, even if they're still having the same responsibility of being cover 2, it's now 7 men in the box, and you have to block a little bit better. And USC didn't necessarily do that, make that adjustment. The air raid being different than Washington State, we've tried to tell you guys, I think, several times that it was going to be that way. And USC's actually been really balanced as far as their numbers, as far as pass and run, so far for the season as a whole.
Balance.
Which Clay Helton must be in love with. But we said that when Graham Harrell was at North Texas, he was much closer to 50% pass and run than anything close to what Mike Leach was running.
Yeah.
And so Mike Leach's air raid is different because they throw the ball to the running back so much. They use those as runs, and they throw it a ton to those guys. And Esau Winston Jr. as a wide receiver at Washington State is crushing it this year. But all those wide receivers, his idea is to spread the ball out evenly among the 5 skill players. And if you can get, for each position, if you can get 20% to them, then you're doing your job.
Yeah.
That's the balance he's looking for, Mike Leach is. This is different offense for USC.
Real quick on Periscope, Sean Canali wrote in, Ryan, looking forward to having you speak at our Wednesday at our Trojan Club event. So he runs the San Gabriel Valley Trojan Club. I will be speaking there. Should be interesting. We'll see. Sometimes it depends if there's like an athletic department member in the audience or a coach or something, or if it's just the fans and you can say a little different stuff. But Sean, I'm looking forward to it too. I'm very curious what kind of questions and stuff we're going to be getting, but we'll see.
Interesting. Okay.
But if you're up in the San Gabriel Valley, make sure, and you're not part of the club, Sean does an amazing job. He runs a great Trojan Club up there, so make sure you check it out.
Alrighty, let's go to our next caller on the line. Hello, you are live on television.
Hello, hi, Mike from Silver Lake. I was really surprised at the quality of the defensive back play in the game on Saturday. I mean, it only shows the depth that USC has, and which makes it even more surprising that they're losing games. Secondly, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I really think that SC has a very good chance of upsetting Notre Dame because of the quality of the play and the way they even played against a very top-notch quarterback last weekend. If they get everything together.
Thanks, Mike. So
that's always the big if. If they can
it is
get
a big if, but you're right.
together.
The defensive backs played way better. Ian Book's a great quarterback too. We'll see. I just didn't think Jacob Eason played all that well. But a lot of that has to do with, he got some pressure on him up front, but certainly the defensive backs played better than expectations. There's a lot of talent there. There just wasn't a lot of experience. You get a guy like Max Williams be able to come in and make big plays, like get a sack, force a fumble. It's a big deal. So that shows you there is depth there. When we say they're talented, we're not blowing smoke up their butt. Like, they really are a talented group. So, yeah, they have a puncher's chance against anybody just because of the talent on the field.
Yeah, I think Isaac Taylor-Stewart's playing beyond my expectations for him this year. I think that Elijah Griffin has been terrific when he's been in there.
Yeah.
Greg Johnson's playing good at that nickelback spot. He's been kind of a ball hawk, making plays, making impact plays. He's given up some completions, but he's making impact plays.
Yep.
I mean, you see a guy like Max Williams come in, first opportunity, no fear, making plays, creates a fumble, like you said, gets a sack. He knew that he was going to be in for one quarter. He knew that as soon as the quarter was over, Greg Johnson's coming back into the game. But he went out there and made plays. Didn't play scared or anything.
Yeah, and I talked to Greg Burns about that whole group and how they played, and the phrase he used for ITS was he grew up. He grew up in this game, and he had a couple pass breakups, and so he said that he made a good jump, but he's always looking for more. And then Max Williams, he said, is a guy that they want to get on the field in any way possible, and they're trying to incorporate that more and give him different looks in practice. So something to watch for going forward for sure. But thanks for the call. We appreciate it, especially from a Notre Dame fan. Thanks for watching the show. Let's go to the last caller in the queue. Hello, you're live on television.
Hey, this is John. I was originally in San Diego. I've been a USC man since '78, and there's an issue there. You either hang up the helmets and shut down the football program, or get serious about hiring a good coach. It was 30 years or so between John Robinson and Pete Carroll. What did you have in between those two coaches? So, as much as I like Clay and all the stuff that he does with the kids, it's kind of pathetic because we have some of the best talent in the country on this team. and they can't get it done against BYU. They barely beat Fresno State. You know, and then you have a new president that doesn't want Urban Meyer as a coach. I don't get it. You know, you either get serious or you stop embarrassing the football program and the history. You know, so that's my question. What is that? What is the athletic department going to do? Are they going to get serious, or should they just clean up the football program? Because
oops, I muted him.
Hey, John, thanks for the call there. And I don't think Carol Folt, we don't know that she does not want Urban Meyer. That was one report that was out there. I don't necessarily believe that to be true. But you're exactly right as far as USC needs to stop making USC decisions and go forward and make good decisions. That means not bringing in another inexperienced athletic director, because the last time you hired anyone with experience was 1984. So you're talking 30, 40 years, whatever. I mean, there's been a long time. So you want to bring in somebody good who doesn't know the USC way. And to me, it's really about in a department where you have a lot of good people, but there's a lot of people that have been there a long time that don't really want things changed. They know they're not doing things exactly like the right way, but they do it their way. If you brought in an experienced athletic director over the last 20 years, they would have looked around and go, why are you guys doing this stuff? Here's how it's going to work. Now they have to do that. So I think that's one step. You needed a real athletic director. They will get that in place. And the other one is hiring a coach that somebody else would hire. You know my two rules: experienced, good at their job, and doesn't know the fight song. I think you need to bring that in right now. So get somebody that's good at their job, not a coordinator, not someone that you think might be good. Like, you have to get someone that's a proven college head coach. USC deserves that. And you're right. If you're not going to go that way, then just shut things down, because it's not worth it anymore.
They're not going to shut anything down.
Shut it down.
People say this about
make the right hire.
They say this about the baseball team. Like, if they're not going to try to win, why don't they just shut it? They're not going to shut it down. It's not going to happen.
But the football team actually matters.
And the football team still makes money. You know, they're not
Right.
going at a deficit right now. So it's because they make money, they're still going to play football. Even if they're not being competitive, they're still making money at the moment. So they're not going to shut things down. We've asked this question several times. What does the athletic department, what does the administration want from the football team? And that's still a big question, because what the fans want is a national championship contender. We don't know that the administration has that in their interest, because they know
they don't,
because that costs money. You have to spend money to make money. And I think it's a good investment, especially at a school like USC, which has the tradition of the program, and because that attracts more students and stuff. They talk about it all the time in the NCAA tournament when a team like Davidson goes on a run, how their numbers, their
application
goes through the roof. Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing in college football. If USC's in the college football playoff, you're going to have even more attracted. It's a great investment. I don't see why USC's administration has decided that's not the case for them the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Or if they feel like they are, then they're just incorrect.
I think there's the administration. You hope for a winner, but you're not going to go hire someone that you would know would be a winner or give you the best chance. When you hire Clay Helton, who's never been head coach because he's the guy in the room and he's not going to rock the boat, you're hoping he's going to win, but you didn't do that. If winning was your number one priority, you would never hire Clay Helton as your head coach. Like, you wouldn't have done it. Like, you're doing it for other reasons. And Shotgun's exactly right. That's not what this administration has been focused on. It's more of these other things. And I think now it's got so bad, John, that you can't do these things anymore. You can't make the USC decisions anymore. You have to, just cut it off right here, get a real athletic director, get an experienced head football coach, and you just move on and see if you can win.
Alrighty. Ryan lays it down.
Just lay it down. And if you get Urban Meyer, you crush it. You absolutely crush it. It changes everything overnight. It goes from season ticket sales go up, 50%. Recruiting goes from crap to amazing. They're instantly the favorite to win the Pac-12, and they will be turned around so fast. He will fix just about everything.
I also should point out that no one in the athletic department or administration would not want him as a coach. It's the baggage that comes with him because of what has happened at Florida and Ohio State after he's left, and things. and also the power that he would
Right.
demand. Some people don't want to give up power, and then some people are afraid of the baggage. The coaching aspect, just between the lines, everyone's like, that would be a great hire. But what about these other things?
And I think that's the issue, is if you have real questions about, and he's never had an NCAA investigation or anything like that, that's fine. But if you're worried about the power, and we've said this before, where if you're the administration, you're like, I don't want to hire a coach that's too powerful, winning is not your priority. And that's what we feel is going on here. We've been told that many times, that they wouldn't, if you had Pete Carroll 15 years ago and you could hire him today, or the last couple of years, the USC administration wouldn't have done that. He'd win, but he ran the show, and that's not something they wanted. So to me, that's not about, and as fans, they're going to be frustrated as heck, because the most important thing to them, they want to win. Yeah, you don't want like kids going to jail and all that kind of stuff, but you want to win. If you'd rather, if someone's going to wield more power in the athletic department as a head coach and they win games, they're fine with it. But from what we were told inside the administration, that's not necessarily what they wanted. So
because the people in the administration are humans, and humans inherently, if they have power, they don't want to give up power.
Yeah. But would you rather make your program better and win national championships than you want to hire a guy like Urban Meyer, or hire somebody along those lines over the past 3 or 4 hires, which they have not done? They've hired people that are familiar, that they know, that not necessarily going to be good coaches, but they're not going to rock the boat or do anything crazy. But they actually hired some people that did things crazy where they didn't expect.
Yep. Alrighty, let's go into rapid fire. It's 8:21 right now.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for all the calls and questions. We appreciate it for sure. I'm actually going to give some love to Facebook. We haven't given you as much love tonight. Maria on Facebook says, what do you think about the team's conditioning?
What? Yeah, I don't know why Keely doesn't like Facebook so much. Sorry, Facebook people.
Such a troll.
You are a troll. I think the conditioning is fine.
Yeah, they're in better shape.
The only time that I've really seen them gas was the BYU game, and I think that the altitude played a major factor in that.
I believe so too.
Keely and I can attest to.
We felt it.
Just the effect that it has when you're on the sideline.
You guys are wusses, though.
Yeah, you didn't even make the trip. But the only other time was late in the Utah game. There were a couple of defensive players where there were no backups because of the injuries that they've had in certain positions. They were huffing and puffing a little bit, but I think that was. They still played. None of them, gave up a play because they were tired or anything like that. So I think that was just partially the defense played like 30 more plays than the offense, so I played into it. But I think their condition has been fine. I think the big men, especially, I don't think I've ever seen many guys just like you're just like, well, that guy's gassed, completely gassed. And there's been I have what I call the 90 play club. Guys that have played 90 total plays in a game. Which before this year, I think it was 12 in the last, 4 years that I've done it. There have already been, 5 guys that have done it this year.
Wow.
And some of those guys are like Austin Jackson, Jalen McKenzie, big guys, and you don't see them at the end of the game like really struggling. I think the conditioning has been much improved this year, I would say.
Yeah, and I talked to Marquise Stepp about, Dan actually did too, about how he's feeling faster, and he specifically credited the conditioning, and he feels like a stronger, faster runner. So there you go.
Someone's asking for Twitter questions. Are there Twitter questions? Or
we do have one.
You have to use hashtag tunnel vision.
Yes.
This is a Periscope person telling me about Twitter questions. So.
Who was it, though? We have a question from Steve, who says, question for everyone except Shotgun, because I know he doesn't do hypotheticals. What are the chances of an in-season coaching change 50-50? Does it depend on the Notre Dame result? Can it happen before the game?
Yes, to all of those things. It depends on all. I mean, there's a lot of things it depends on. The other caller said, if you lose Notre Dame, he's done. It's hard for me to picture a scenario where Clay Helton's the coach in 2020. I'll just tell you that. When that happens, I don't know. But there's not a lot of scenarios in my mind that Clay Helton is the coach in 2020. I'll leave it at that.
We have a Facebook question from Jeff, who says, have we ran a reverse this year? I don't remember seeing one.
Don't think so.
They ran something. They ran some kind of in around or something. I'm blanking on when it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't hyper successful, but I think it picked up a couple yards.
Raphael says, why isn't Velus Jones playing? Can someone please answer this?
He was listed as the starter this past week, but I don't know what he's.
Because they're not rotating those receivers.
Yeah, it's really just those main guys. It's mostly 3 wide receivers, the H-back, Croman Hoke or Josh Follow, and then one of the running backs. Like that's a typical formation, right? That's what you mostly see.
And then to your point earlier, Ryan, Chris on Facebook said, do you wait to fire Helton after an AD is hired, or do you pull the trigger ASAP and run the risk of impacting your recruiting?
Well, the recruiting doesn't matter right now. The recruiting is in the tank, so that you're not going to hurt recruiting by firing firing somebody now. If that's the direction you know you're going to go, and it's like an ugly loss to Notre Dame, I could see it happening. I mean, we thought there might be a chance during this bye week, but the fact that it didn't happen today, he was on the conference call, then probably not. But it could, potentially could after, say it's an ugly Notre Dame loss, then maybe it could happen then. But, you'd rather have that happen with an athletic director in place. But I think if you're hiring an athletic director, you're doing it under the assumption that that person, he or she, will be hiring a new head football coach. I think that's number 1 through 5 questions you're asking them is about who you would hire as the next football coach at USC.
If you were going to fire Helton before the Notre Dame game, the bye week, as a lot of people were like, oh, maybe it'll happen during the bye week. It would have probably happened today. You probably wouldn't have let him do the conference call.
I would guess.
There is a very slight chance that it would be on Monday. I mean, Lynn Swann did resign on Monday.
Yeah.
Resigned. So that's a very slim possibility. I don't think it's going to happen. But if you were going to make the move at this time, I think it would have happened earlier today.
Yeah.
Corey on Facebook says, what happened to the idea of tempo? He also says, nice to meet you. It was nice to meet you in Salt Lake.
Oh, nice. They've done some tempo. I mean, I think it's been somewhat successful when they do it, but it's not. This isn't like running 85, 90 plays a game kind of thing on a consistent basis.
The Utah game they couldn't because they weren't moving the ball consistently enough. I haven't done my charting or anything yet to see what it was in Washington. They've got to be able to find consistency with the offense. I think the noise at Washington was a factor in not doing it this week as much. But yeah, I asked Graham Harrell last week how he felt about the tempo, and he liked it basically. He said we're best when we go fast, and part of it has been not controlling the ball. The time of possession against Utah is why they haven't really been able to get into it as much. You saw some of it at BYU. They had to pull back on that, I think, at the BYU game because of the altitude and the fatigue factor for the defense more. So it just seems like there's been something every game that's kind of pulling them back from it. But it is kind of confounding that you're not going with the same tempo that we kind of expected. And they talked about wanting to have and that they practice all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. Vintage wants to know our thoughts on Devin Williams transferring.
That's a really weird thing. And I was getting text messages like before it broke that he was going to Oregon about, hey, what are you hearing about this? And I really just didn't really care. Like, he's out. I'm not really going to put – there's plenty of other USC things to do. I thought Oregon would make the most sense. Most likely they didn't have room for Devin Williams, and then they made room for Devin Williams. So he was announced, took pictures in Oregon State gear and all that stuff, and then ends up going to Oregon. So kind of sucks for Oregon State, but it's one of those things.
Definitely sucks for them.
Yeah, one of those things that Oregon figured out a way to get him in there. And I mean, they were pretty full, 2 guys they added to go. So I don't know how they did this.
Yeah, that was the whole question about Chris Steele potentially going up there. Are they even going to have room for it? That seemed like that played a factor in this. They weren't expected to have any room, and Devin wanted to go to school right now rather than waiting.
Yeah.
So I think that's how he ended up at Oregon State, and then something happened in Oregon, something opened up for him. I don't know the exact backstory on it.
Very strange.
That's what seemed is the most likely case. We don't know that for sure, but Oregon was his number 2 school when he chose USC initially coming out of high school. So that looked like where he was. That seemed like the most logical destination for him after he decided to leave USC.
I just want to clarify something before we keep going forward. Just because this happened with Graham Harrell's non-scrum after BYU, there's some misconceptions. Just Clay Helton's conference call was short because the press didn't have any more questions for him. It wasn't like they were like, oh, we're yanking Clay away, you can't ask any questions. It was just that's what happened when no one asked any more questions. And we're not sure if that happened because of a technical difficulty where no one could press into the conference call. So
well, we do know that Dan did not ask. Dan's the main. Usually Dan will ask a few questions and then call back and ask a couple more.
But I'm clarifying because people are saying that, they stopped the press conference or Clay didn't want to talk. And I just want to make sure that's clear because there were misconceptions prior with Graham Harrell. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
It wasn't Lane Kiffin. Got to go.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. And the people that did call in with questions were basically asking one thing and just like, okay, thanks. And there's just, you get to the point where it doesn't matter what you're just going to say the same things. You're not going to ask anymore. So it's, this wasn't on, the only the reason this is Clay Helton's fault, if you're going to say it's Clay Helton's fault, not because he said I want to have a short conference call, it's because the answers he's giving, people are just done asking him questions.
Yep. Let's go to a question from New Zoo Guru who says, Shotgun, do you see any potential upset loss remaining on USC's schedule?
Sure. They could be favored against Arizona State or Cal and lose to either of those teams. I mean, I think both of those teams
Colorado Friday night on the road
because everyone struggles on Friday nights on the road in the Pac-12. So that's there's several options there because USC's shown that they're not consistent enough to just mark it down as a win anywhere.
Yeah,
even under Pete Carroll, they showed that.
And so they'll be
Oregon State.
USC will be favored in pretty much all the games except Notre Dame and Oregon, probably.
Probably. Depends on what they're looking like coming into Oregon. They can still be favored in the Oregon game, too.
Potentially, yeah.
Tom on Facebook said, did Matt Fink miss a lot of open receivers? It was hard to tell on TV.
Not necessarily. I mean,
I couldn't see that he missed.
His throws did not miss open receivers. It's not like he was just the guy was open and threw it way over him or anything like that. Did he miss some opportunity? Did he not throw the ball to some guys? Yeah, I think there were a couple times there, but it's hard to tell. It's much easier to see those type of things with the All-22, the coaches film, where it's from the end zone. But we don't have access to that, unfortunately.
Yep. I'm going to go to our last caller, then Shotgun, if you want to get any questions ready to wrap it up. It is 8:30.
Also, I should point out, as far as the Matt Fink thing, is that I've only watched the game on a smartphone so far. So when I go back through it more in depth, I'll try to look and see for that.
Also, more reason to watch our film study on USCFootball.com.
Yes.
Plug. Alrighty, let's go to our last caller in the queue. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, I just want to make it really quick. It kind of seems like Clay Helton is more of a group of 5 coach instead of a power 5 coach, if that makes sense. And also, this probably goes against Ryan's thoughts, but what do you think about the NFL's hot name of Chris Richard coming back to the Cowboys game?
Hang up on him. No, thanks for the call. Clay Helton hadn't been a head coach before, so his first job was not just a Power 5; it was a top 5 job. So, I don't know. I'm not sure where if USC and Clay Helton part ways, where he would end up. And no, you're going to hire an NFL coordinator who's never been a college head coach. That makes absolutely no sense. You can't do that. Maybe if you had a great run of something, but no. You need a college guy who's been a head coach who's won at a major program. You can't afford to go and throw out prospects on someone that's never been a head coach before. I know he's a hot name and everything, and that's fine, but he's not in college, and he's never been a head coach. USC can't afford to take those kind of chances at this point because of all the bad hires they've made before. Is blunt enough for you? Yes. Sorry.
Not a terrible candidate, though. Just saying.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Terrible candidate. Terrible. Not for other programs. For what USC needs right now, you cannot afford to hire someone
I'm not referencing
who's not been
to
a head
USC.
coach.
I said as a candidate. It's not a terrible candidate. I didn't say there's
there's
no job opening at USC. So how could I be referencing the USC
He might get
job?
an NFL head coaching job, and I think it'd be great. That's fine. But you can't do that. It's NFL. It's not college. And USC can't afford that right now.
Thanks for the call. We appreciate it. We have a question from Jesse, our resident UCLA fan who watches the show. He said, what do you guys think about players posting highlights or pictures of themselves after a game which they lose?
Not a huge fan.
I haven't seen anyone actually post highlights. If someone posts a picture on Instagram, which is a social media platform that is about posting pictures, I don't have a problem with it. Now, if someone has cut their highlights and they post that may be a little bit different. I got this question a couple. You've seen that?
Yes.
See, that I would have an issue with that if I'm the coach more than I don't. Personally, I don't care what the players post.
I think the issues are they don't feel like, and when the players do that, it's like players is players, but the coaches aren't making the fans feel like losses hurt. The coaches are making fans feel like losses are okay. We'll explain it away. We'll just get better. We'll watch the film, and then we'll go back. And I think that's why they're going to be more sensitive to what players are doing, because if they feel that coaches don't seem to care as much about the loss, then they want the players or something to do. I think that's where this is coming from. They're players. They're doing this for free. Put pictures up, like you said, if you want. But I think that's why this is – they feel like the coaches aren't taking the as seriously or as hard as they would like, as the fans are taking it. Seems like.
Yep.
I think that the coaches take it hard, but they're not getting that impression as the vibe I'm getting from fans.
I guess here's my question that I debate a lot is like, does it matter what coach speak the coaches say ultimately? Like, if Clay were to say this and still get it done, does it really matter? Like, they probably still believe what you're saying. They still probably hurt after the loss. Does it matter that they explicitly don't say it?
I think it matters. Yeah. I mean, we go back to that Tim Tebow speech. You remember that? Like, you remember like him saying like, you're never going to see another, fight and blah, blah, blah. And like, and he was right. They went on this kind of run, but that rallied people around him. And like, that was something that you felt the passion, like that guy gets it. Even if he fails, I'm going to follow that guy, and you're not getting that kind of feel from what the coach speak that you're getting.
And in that, he was wearing a logo that would eventually become his company, and he's earned a lot of money from it, but yet he doesn't want the players to be paid, which is interesting. Just throwing it out there.
True, yes.
Let's go to rapid fire, though.
Sure. Shotgun.
We're not done
We
yet?
already
Okay.
did rapid fire. What?
We have 4 minutes, right?
4
Sunday,
minutes.
we got
Sure.
8:36.
Sure, Shotgun. Let's go.
Did we answer the question, the Jacqueline? You highlighted it, but I don't believe we answered it. What was the breakdown of the 89-yard run from Washington? It seems like the defense as a whole.
You said it was
played well. Chase Williams
You
took a
did
bad
address it.
angle, missed the tackle there. So
That's why I highlighted it.
okay, sorry, I didn't know if we'd asked it. Is it too late to cancel the Alabama game next season? Yes, that'd be a lot of money if you canceled that for USC to pay out for breaking a contract. Question is Bryce Young commitment to Alabama just for more exposure, or is it legit? I watched them in D.C. this week. Yeah, it's legit. I talked to him last Monday. Yes, very legit. He still likes USC though. Nothing but positive things.
If USC hired Urban Meyer,
maybe
you might get him back.
Question: do you think David Shaw could be a possibility because Stanford seems to be on the downward path? Even if
Is that why you want to hire him? He's on the downward path.
Even if USC had a job opening right now, I don't think David Shaw is leaving Stanford anytime soon. He would have to be forced out before he's leaving. Do you guys think they'll make a coaching change before they hire a new AD? That's a question we've kind of been getting, back and forth. Is like, can you hire a coach prior to AD?
I don't think
someone
so.
else asked later is like, why doesn't the interim AD go out and get Urban Meyer and then that way he can vie for the spot? It's like, well, he may not be allowed to, and it might be like, you want to hire a coach? That's great. Too bad we're not hiring anyone yet.
That would be very USC. You want to let the athletic director hire the coach, so you can't do that beforehand.
Trek asks, why can't the offense take the underneath receiver and work their way down the field? Seems like they don't have the patience to do that. I don't necessarily know if it's a patience thing.
They've done it, though.
They've done it sometimes, yeah. And I think that it's has the defense changes throughout the game. Why can't we run the spread with a tight end, Austin says? They use the tight end like 60 or 70% of the time.
I think like 3 catches by tight ends, right? It was like 2 Criminal, 1 follow, or vice versa or something. I don't know. They got a little run.
You got some love.
There was another question about Jude Wolfe being involved. The freshman not playing is not why.
No,
the tight end's not catching more balls.
If Jude Wolfe would have played, USC would be 5-0.
Okay.
Right.
There was a question: if JT Daniels had played, would they be 5-0? Would they be 4-1? If he was still healthy?
I don't think they lose in overtime to BYU.
I think you have one of those 2 records. I don't think you're 3-2.
But you could have lost one of the other ones. So
could have.
Yeah.
But I'm taking a guy that's got experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
I noticed that Saban runs his team like the military. Helton not so much. Is the sloppy penalties a direct result of this?
I mean,
the weird thing about the penalties is I feel like the dam's breaking a little bit, if you will. I feel like the self-control, the self-discipline is kind of getting worse each game.
It worked the first couple games.
Yeah, at the beginning, I think it was a message that was clear, and I think the longer they go in the season, they're kind of forgetting that a little bit. But
reverting back to their tendency.
And I think that's like, are you going to really get on Matt Fink for spiking the ball? Like, he scored a touchdown. He's got to be freaking excited.
He felt really bad on the sideline.
I know.
And players were like, it's okay.
Right. But you don't want to get on him for that. But there's, or Talanoa Hufanga coming onto the field. But I think the way USC is now, you have to be so buttoned up, and they just don't seem to be buttoned up. There's going to be these loose edges, and you're going to have plays like that happen.
Two left. A.K.A. Boone says, USC has always been the more talented team, the more talented players. These last 2 classes plus the current class are weak. Are we still going to be the most talented team next year? If not, we're screwed. With the recruiting class as it currently is, and it obviously could change, they could go on a run. There's still guys that are looking at USC or seeing what happens at USC. But if it stays where it is right now, then you're going to have to coach a lot better because you're not going to have as many special players. You're not have impact players coming in the freshman class. Right now, there's no impact players that are committed.
Not.
I mean, Joshua Jackson could be a guy that plays as a freshman, but the rest of the group is all 3-star guys, and they're offensive linemen that are smaller guys that are going to have to bulk up. I don't think any of those offensive linemen are playing immediately. Maybe Jamar Sakona comes in, but that would depend on the defensive line in front of him. I don't think there's really room for him to come in. So as of right now, you're going to have to coach better because you're going to lose some of your stars from this year's team, and you're not going to get a bunch of impact players coming in.
Yeah, but last year's class wasn't ranked as high, but they still had impact players. And getting Chris Steele and Brew McCoy to come back into the fold, that would have bumped them up from like number 20 to number 14. So it was more, except now number 62. But that's one bad class, and it's not a big class because they're not filling 25 rides for this one. So it's not like they're going to go from the number 4 roster in the country to number 25, but they'll drop down some for sure. But they still might be the most talented roster on their schedule. I mean, it'll be closer, but like they won't be top 4 like they've been in the last couple of years.
And the last one, a couple people asked this of you, Ryan. Which era is most frustrating for you, being that you were around Helton, Hackett, or Smith? And Jasper said it was Smith for him because of the winless streak versus Notre Dame and the jump start of the 8 losses to UCLA.
How old is Jasper Smith? Sorry, I was just curious.
Yeah. Those were rough. But
Ryan also probably has a very different perspective of them.
I mean, I was a student
versus now covering the team.
Yeah, but Larry Smith went to 3 straight Rose Bowls and won one. But there was that. But then he kind of didn't recruit after that. There was a lot of Tolner people that were kind of upset. Hackett was. That was different. I mean, he worked those guys like to the bone, and they were frustrated because then they stunk. And some of his comments, even after Pete Carroll went on his run, and wins the Orange Bowl after his second year, Hackett was like, "Well, I had a 5-year plan. It was fired after 3 years." Like, yeah, you would have been Orange Bowl champions after 2 more years of that. So they're all unique. Clay Helton did some really good things. Winning the Rose Bowl, you won the Pac-12, but I feel like the rest of the administration was more bought in before. So it's a combination of maybe not having the strongest head coach and having an administration that had a hand in that where they didn't really want a strong head coach. I think now the culture around the program is probably more frustrating than I've seen it even back then, if that makes sense.
Is Jordan Rice ever returning for the Notre Dame? That's the target. The same with
goal.
Elijah Winston.
Yeah, we'll see if he's at practice this week.
Why does USC not run a jet sweep? Because they run a pop pass instead if they're in a shotgun. You have to run a jet sweep out of a under center.
And I think that's going to wrap it up. We had people come into the YouTube and go, "You guys are still on? I thought I missed it." So we're going long today.
We did long. We have
a lot to talk about.
We did do an emergency podcast, so we had to do
This is kind of like the fill in, little extra time.
Yeah, there you go. And speaking of which, extra long because it is bye week, and we're not having a live show on Thursday. So we'll be back on Sunday, though, right, Shaka? Ryan?
Sunday sounds good, yeah.
So we'll be back next Sunday to talk about USC football, but we're getting a bye week too on Thursday, so just heads up about that. But thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all the calls, comments, questions, concerns we got. Hopefully we gave you guys some free therapies from free USC therapy. But that's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next Sunday. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in.